the other streets that we're not looking at. Looking at the agenda.
Oh. We have another statistic for that area.
Yeah.
One of our own.
Oh, that's actually right there.
It's not pretty.
We're not gonna let her talk.
Road presentation.
Yeah, well, what?
Road presentation, but you can take that seat right there.
Isn't that right?
That looks like it.
It's water.
Water.
Although I tell you, that's not where it's.
You unmute, star 9, raise hand. Only said that 100 times during this.
It's just,
You just showing the road assessment?
What was that?
Are you seeing just the road assessment on the screen or?
Yeah.
I am not seeing. I see this. All I see right now is the agenda.
Okay, fine. It's just ours.
okay.
On the
Sorry,
counts.
Peter.
It's just
Don't
on
know
the
what's
counts.
going on. I said, don't know what's going on with the computer tonight. It's just showing.
I'll be muted for a while because my cricket's back.
Yeah, no problem.
All right.
Can you guys hear him? Or is it just Linda's super ears?
I think it's funny that I literally heard crickets.
You
Usually
hear
we
crickets?
say that as a,
I thought
joke.
usually, yeah, normally it's a metaphor. Not in this case. Big ones too. The big black guys, like that big.
Those are the grooviest.
Yeah. Far out, man.
E-tickets? That is what is on the. Huh?
Hear the
I
crickets.
can hear his crickets.
Who's good?
There you go.
Yes.
Little entertainment for the crowd. My cricket.
Sounds like you got an infestation.
Oh, he's not alone. There's been a couple in here. Throwing things at him doesn't seem to quiet him down either.
And you just heard them when you pay attention.
Oh, there he goes. Oh, see, right back.
They see the agenda.
Yeah, we're just not gonna see the
How
others.
many, do we have,
We have all council.
all the council
Yeah, we can't see that right now.
attendees? Let's get rolling. Mr. Roberts is coming. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our August 24th regular town council meeting. We'll get started with a moment of silence for our men and women serving in harm's way and pledge allegiance.
The United States of America, to the republic
Republic, which it stands,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Start with our roll call.
Ms. Jukusa?
Here.
Ms. Abbott?
Here.
Mr. Hamilton?
I am here.
Mr. Katzen?
Here.
Mr. Kelly?
here.
Dr. Ryan?
Here.
Treasurer?
Here. Thank you all. For those of you that are home participating tonight, if you are calling in on a phone, *6 will allow you to mute and unmute your phone when called upon. *9 will indicate that you have a question, raise a hand, we'll call upon you. When we do call upon you, please state your name and address for our clerk. And for those of you that are participating online, you'll have the features on the Zoom screen to raise your hand and we'll call upon you. And again, please state your name and address for our clerk. Thank you. For President's executive summary, prior to our meeting tonight, we did hold an executive session under personnel matters with the town administrator review. No votes were taken. Next, I would like to pass along our condolences to the family of Robert Driscoll. Bob served the town for numerous years in many capacities. He was a town solicitor, town councilor, and finally he served 21 years as town administrator. So Bob was definitely someone who gave a lot for the town of Portsmouth, and we thank him for that and do want to pass along our condolences to his family. Next, we have our consent agenda. We have just bills.
Move to approve as presented. This is Keith Hamilton.
I'm Katzman, second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Katzen?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Treasurer?
Aye. Motion 7-0. Next, we'll be sitting as the Board of License Commissioners. The only item is the daily liquor license. The Island Park Preservation Society, they're requesting, which we originally approved on August 23rd, 2020, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. to a new date of October 11th.
Keith Hamilton, move to approve.
Mark Ryan, seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Katzen?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Treasurer?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Move to adjourn as the Board of License Commissioners.
Second.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott? Aye. Hamilton?
Aye.
Katzen?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Treasurer?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, we have tax vouchers. Request approval for tax voucher 2020-08-24-01 to 2020-08-24-02.
Motion
Mark
to
Ryan.
approve.
Mark Ryan, seconded.
All those in favor?
Mrs. Jukusa?
Aye.
Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Capson?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguilar?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Okay, next we're moving on to our town administrator report. Mr. Ring?
Good evening, Mr. President, Town Council, ladies and gentlemen. With respect to the COVID-19 update, Rhode Islanders has thankfully been heading or heeding state health guidelines, and that has resulted in fewer reported cases of COVID-19. I would, however, like to stress that we should all continue to stay vigilant. As a reminder, the following rules are still in place. All gatherings must be limited to 15 people or less, and violations are punishable by a fine of up to $500 per person. We should be limiting our circle of contacts to 15 people or less, masked, and face covering should be worn when social distancing is not possible. Common surfaces should be cleaned frequently, and hands should be washed and sanitized often. I'd like to point out that the Rhode Island Education Commissioner, Angelica Infante Green, has singled out Portsmouth for our excellent work in putting together our reopening plan. The Portsmouth Schools plan both their full and partial reopening scenarios have students in pre-kindergarten to grade 6 attending in-person instruction every day, while grades 7 to 12 would alternate between in-person and distance learning in their partial return. The decision on how schools will reopen, whether school attendance, distance learning, or hybrid, will be made by August 31st. I'd also stress that there's updated guidance for those who need a COVID test and also need to know where to go. If you have symptoms, stay home, contact your primary provider, or call a community health clinic or respiratory clinic. Do not have symptoms and you fall into one of these categories. You're a close contact worker, you're 18 to 39 years old, you're traveling to a state with a greater than 5% positive rate, or you're a person who has recently attended a large protest or demonstration, you can sign up for a free test at portalri.gov. With respect to our emergency food bank, the food bank, I'd like to remind people that it is now located at St. John's Lodge number 1. That's the Freemasons Lodge on Sprague Street. It's 81 Sprague Street. It is open from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Wednesdays and Fridays for food distribution and to accept donations. I want to note that the town has and continues to receive generous amounts of cash and food donations that it intends to reinvest in the community. The establishment of our emergency food bank was part and is part of our local emergency disaster relief operation, and more information can be found on our website. There's an upcoming community leadership meeting. We haven't had those in a while. Captain Ian Johnson has been relieved by Captain James McIver as the commanding officer of Naval Station Newport. The community leadership meetings sponsored by his predecessors have unfortunately been postponed most of this year due to COVID. But Captain McIver has decided that it's time to resume these leadership forums early this fall. I look forward to resuming these meetings and continuing our relationship with the leadership community on Aquidneck Island. In response to issues and concerns raised by neighborhood residents, town staff met with the receiver of Newport Beach Club regarding parking and trash near the beach public access area at the end of Pheasant Drive. The current caretakers are now removing trash 3 times a day. Additionally, the receiver will place and/or replace signage and physical barriers to bring the access area into compliance with the owner's obligations under the CRMC assent. We will continue to monitor the issues raised by the residents and work with the receiver to ensure that the future ownership of the Newport Beach Club are aware of the obligations associated with that beach area. And lastly, the Honorable Charles A. Williams, Assistant Secretary of the Navy for Energy, Installations, and Environment, will be in Newport on this Wednesday. He's going to visit the base, but while in the area, he is also going to conduct visits to each of the municipalities. He will visit Portsmouth to meet with me on Wednesday afternoon, me and the town president, council president on Wednesday afternoon. And I'll also echo the statements made regarding Bob Driscoll. I'm sure I speak for all of us when I say our sincere sympathy goes out to his family.
Thank you, Grant. Okay. Moving on to old business, we will begin with a presentation of East Main Road Safety Assessment. Tonight we have Sky Levin, who's a consultant with VHB, they're representing DOT. Mr. Gaffney?
Yes, Mr. President, thank you for recognizing me. I'd like to welcome folks from RIDOT. I'm looking forward to the presentation. I just wanted to make a remark on the idea of a road diet, in the sense that I've gotten quite a bit of correspondence and been contacting a lot of people.
Mr. Gaffney, hold on a second.
Sure.
Before we get started, I need to recuse myself. I cannot participate because I'm a consultant, so I will be recusing myself, but I will be passing it over to Mr. DeCouza, Council Vice President. But I just wanted to set the table that we are going to get started, and we do have the folks here to make a presentation of the update. Okay. Thank you. I'll be stepping aside, and then Mr. Katzman, you can take over as soon as.
Well, Ms. Ujifuza will take over. I'll just finish what I was going to say, which was I was contacted by a number of people and got a lot of correspondence with concerns about a road diet. I just wanted to note that no decision, I don't imagine, will be made this evening. We are in a situation where we have asked for, or the RIDOT has performed a road safety assessment. We have not yet received a final report on that. I think some draft of that might be in the works. I am aware that current traffic volume is in the 24,000 or 25,000 vehicle per day range on East Main Road, which approaches the maximum that a road diet could handle. And so it's not at all clear to me that a road diet is in the cards, or that it's advisable. So I just request that members of the public take a breath, know that we're simply talking about potential options that might be relevant for addressing safety issues, and that no decision is likely to be made tonight. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Katzman. All right, so we have representatives from RIDOT as well as their contractor, and I welcome you. Thank you for coming and making this presentation, and we'll let you continue.
Thank you. I introduce myself as Sky Levin. I am here as a consultant to RIDOT.
Hold on, Ms. Levin, can I just ask you to wait for a second? Can whoever's controlling the computer, can you click on the three dots and exit the presenter view so we can just see the full slide on the screen, please? Hide presenter view.
That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so today we are coming to the town to present a little bit about what we talked about with the road safety assessment stakeholders, and then to go into next steps and kind of what we're doing moving forward. So in general, I just kind of wanted to start out just so everyone was on the same page. We did a road safety assessment for the town. What that entails is we look at a lot of data. So we pulled crashes from 2013 to 2018. And then we bring together a stakeholder group. We usually try to make sure that every single stakeholder represents a different aspect of the town. So we had police, we had the town council, we had the senator, the state rep. So all those people kind of come together and get the input of the public to be able to move the RSA forward. Also, when we do an RSA, we like to get out into the field and do a site visit. So we walked different areas along East Main Road, just to look at the areas. When we pull the crashes, I look at trends. I see stuff from a data aspect. And sometimes when you go into the field, it's nice to just get those eyes on the road and kind of get an idea of maybe why this is happening or why it's not. So from there, then we end up doing, we call it the 5 E's: evaluate, engineering, education, encouragement, and enforcement. And we kind of get a whole bunch of different objectives that those 5 categories can do to work as a team, because there's not one item that will fix any problem. It's a group effort. So we then identify it, we write a report that gets reviewed by all the stakeholder members. It gets sent out. It's still currently in draft. And yeah, so. Awesome. So just really quick, like I said before, so when we do an RSA, it's not just looking at one aspect. We're trying to get a look at every aspect. That includes all road users. So I like to call them vulnerable road users. That would be a pedestrian. That would be a bicyclist. Even down to a motorcyclist, we classify as more of a vulnerable user. Then we also make sure to look at the surrounding environment, see if it's developable, undevelopable, and where to go. So we take a lot of different aspects into account when we do the RSA. It's not just one item or another. So for the RSA, we ended up looking at the study limits from the town line all the way up to Turnpike. I know you guys all know the condition of the road. You guys drive it probably on a daily basis, but just to kind of go over some of the basic information that we use with the data. It's about 42 feet wide. The existing travel lanes are 10 feet wide. The posted speed varies from 25 to 35 miles an hour. We went out and we did speed studies and we calculated the 85th percentile speed. This means that 85% of the vehicles riding on or driving on that road are going this speed. So after we take about 50 speed limits, or speed, we track 50 in each direction, so northbound and southbound. We came up with about 85% of the people are traveling 42 to 48 miles per hour. There are no existing sidewalks. There are bus routes along this. And the traffic volumes, AADT is average annual daily traffic is about 24,800. And the daily hour volume, so that's during peak hours, so we're talking like 7 to 9 in the morning, and then about 3:30 to 5:30 out here on the island, just because some people are coming back and forth at different times along with school, so it is a little bit bigger evening, but usually during that time period, you have about 1,500 vehicles per hour. So in general, just to talk thresholds, because I know that was thrown out there, when we look at road diets, the threshold usually, the top one is about 20,000 vehicles per day that we like to do. Anything above that is very pilot and very, you have to do an analysis and kind of look at it, which is where we ultimately ended up looking at the road diet. This was a request that we had gotten, so we wanted to make sure that it was above the threshold that Federal Highway Association gives us, so we decided to analyze it. Just to kind of give some back history on everything that has gone on, there was a study back in 2009 for the Aquidneck Island Transportation Study. Out of that came the road diet on Bristol Road and West Main Road. It also had the ADA compliancy and safety updates for Turnpike. In 2015, RIDOT came out with a road diet program manual. East Main Road was looked at that time for a road diet. Unfortunately, the volumes were too high and it was considered, it was thrown out just because of the high volumes. 2017, due to some traffic or some crash evaluations, a signal warrant analysis was conducted at Linden Lane. 2018, East Bay Road at Union and Glen. And then 2018, some Portsmouth officials have requested the road diet study. So there were some operations there, and out of that review came East Main at Macquarie Lane, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then 2018 had the systemic pedestrian program, which we looked at crossings throughout the state on the state roadways, which once again we'll talk about a little bit later, but East Main Road at Quaker Hill Road came out of that. Last year is when we started the road safety assessment, and then safety improvements are happening along Route 24 in 2020. So we have been kind of watching a lot of the stuff on the island and trying to take all of those hotspots and those crashes and try to apply them as soon as possible and get solutions. So when we talk about a road diet, we talk about 3 different kind of buckets to put them in. We have immediate term, which usually happens with less than 6 months of when the RSA is completed. Near term usually happens between 6 months and 2 years. So a little bit bigger projects. And then long term would be, it's additional funding. It's things that we need to look at. So for right now, having already started the RSA and it's in draft form, for the immediate term that we've already have a work order, which would allow us to look at all the signing and the striping along the East Main corridor. Make sure all the signs are up to standard, make sure they're code, make sure that the striping, everything is consistent throughout the state, update any crosswalks that might have older styles of crossing. Also make sure that that paint and the reflective strips and all those items are updated accordingly. So it's kind of, the near term you can kind of look at as low-lying fruit that we try to implement as soon as possible. Then comes the near term. So near term is usually 6 months to 2 years. As I kind of mentioned a little bit before, these are items that we have looked at in the past and we have gotten onto the TIP, RIDOT's Transportation Improvement Program. And just to kind of let you know the 3 things that are coming up to date, we have East Main Road at Quaker Hill Road, and that's through the HSIP program. That's where it's being funded. It's in the 2020, so it should be installed in 2021. We're putting I call it an RFB, which is a rapid reflective flashing beacon. It's at the crosswalks is the lights that kind of oscillate back and forth when a pedestrian pushes the button to allow the traffic to kind of have something different to look at and notice, so then they can slow down and stop for the crosswalk. So that will occur at Quaker Hill. At Linden Lane, the STC, the State Traffic Commission, is planning on installing in 2022 a traffic signal. And then at Macquarie Lane, HSIP again is funding installation of 2023. We're going to end up widening, so we call it box widening, where we take just enough pavement on both sides to get left turn lanes in. There was a decent amount of angle crashes and rear ends of that because people are taking lefts into the bank or to the side road. And so we're going to end up box widening there and allowing for left turn lanes to that intersection.
Excuse me for a second then. This is Councilman Hamilton. Can you go back to that slide real quick? First, the signal at the bottom of Quaker Hill for the pedestrians, is that going to be similar to what was installed over by URI where the bike path goes across?
So at the bike, that's a hawk, correct? Yeah, so at the URI crossing, that's actually a hawk, so that is a signal for pedestrians.
Okay.
And RFB is not a signal. It is an upgrade from the static signs, but it usually has 2 balls on either side and they oscillate back and forth to kind of give that flashing light. And they're on either side pointing at the direction that the cars are coming. So when you press that button, both of those will be activated. The lights go back and forth, just giving an awareness. There's nothing overhead at URI. URI has it up and over with the traffic signals up top, but that's not exactly. If you've ever been to Atwell's Ave, there's some RFBs there. That would be a good example.
Okay. And then with regards to Macquarie Lane's adjustments, the entire length of East Main Road from Headley Street to the Middletown Town Line is scheduled to be paved in 2021, according to the roadworks program. So I would ask that if you're going to widen Macquarie, can't we do it all at the same time?
So the TIP funding is one that Brydot can actually speak more to. The general gist is that money can't be moved up. It's all allocated, and so I do not believe it can be moved up, but that would have to be a question later on for opinions.
Okay. Thank you.
So yes, that would be what typically happens. It's ideal to get them out at the same time. When you do widening, typically there's right of way involved, which tends to slow down the project. So what will typically happen at that is we would coordinate the limits of disturbance if they're going to be a year apart, that they wouldn't overlap, so we wouldn't put down fresh pavement on the year out. But we will coordinate that.
I'm sorry, this is Linda Ujifuza. Could the current speaker identify himself?
Oh, I'm sorry, Steve Priscello from DOT.
Thank you.
Linda, you're muted.
Sorry, I'm sorry to have interrupted you, Steve. Are you done, or do you have a bit more to say?
No, I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Okay. If you want to continue with the presentation, please do so.
Thank you. So once again, talking about near-term projects, we're still in that 6 months to 2 years. One of the items that did come up in the RSA was the road diet. So just to kind of go over a little bit about a road diet, because I know it's a word I use very commonly, but it's not something obviously other people do. A road diet is usually conventionally converting a 4-lane road into 1 lane in each direction with a center 2-way left turn lane. So it ends up being technically 3 lanes, 1 in each direction, but in the center turning lane. The FHWA it's a proven safety countermeasure. It usually reduces about 19 to 47% of total crashes. So that's anywhere from fatal injury down to like a rear end, which would be a PDO. In regards, Brydot has done a decent amount of road diets throughout the state. And with that, we collect after data and we collect the different crashes and compare them and do some statistical stuff. But with that, we have found that about 87% of the average reduction in total crashes, was reduced, and the speed limits usually dropped about 5% on that 85th percentile speed. So road diets in general are great for traffic calming, which was a big concern during the road safety assessment. Another big concern through the road safety assessment was, getting the pedestrians across the road, which a road diet would do ultimately. And it provides a few other things, allowing for left turn lanes and using the shoulder for other items. The one problem is it's a reduction in corridor capacity, and as I mentioned previously, being close to $25,000, wow, 25,000 vehicles per day is a really high number for a road diet to be successful. So we were, after the RSA decided that we'd like to move forward and kind of look at how this option works with the volume that you guys currently have. So, yeah, next thing. So just to give a little bit of just to give you some idea of what I'm going to talk about, I have 2 videos next. One is the AM peak period, which would be from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. And I also have another video that shows the evening, which would be about 3:30 to about 5:36 p.m. And the conditions that it would come out of. I will walk you guys through the videos and we'll kind of talk about it as we go. But I did want to give you a little bit of information beforehand so that you can kind of be aware and watch for it when we play the video. The AM peak in general runs pretty smooth. Average average speeds for both northbound and southbound are about 20 to 25 miles per hour. There is some queuing, and when I say queuing, it's when cars gather one after another, so you have like 3-4 cars in a line waiting. There is some queuing when you get to the signals or when you drop from the 2 lanes to the 1 lane, which would be the transition from what's currently out there to a road diet. But about 97% of the vehicles will be processed in each cycle, which would mean when you look at a traffic light and it has the red, the yellow, and the green, we call that a full cycle. So when I have a car pull up to that traffic signal, it's making it through that time period. When you look at the PM, we struggle because the PM really does not run smoothly. There is a lot of queuing issues, especially on the northbound approach. Average speeds drop to about 10 miles per hour, which is a huge decrease from what is out there currently. This would cause a multitude of different items to happen. You would have vehicles getting frustrated, maybe using side roads to try to figure out a way to get off that road. You would also have side roads that could not even get out of their complex because there's going to be cars bumper to bumper and queued. So you're looking at a few items outside of this video, which when you see it, you'll kind of understand a little bit. But we're now looking at cars not being able to get onto the road because there's so many cars that are sitting going 10 miles an hour. And to that point, about 65% of the cars make it through 1 traffic signal. So I can only get a little more than half of the vehicles to make it through a traffic signal. So if you pull up, you're going to probably look at sitting there for at least 2 cycles. Once again, when you see the video, we'll talk through it a little bit and you'll understand what I'm talking about, but just kind of points for you guys to think about, especially from the safety aspect, which is what Steve and Sean from RIDOT and I are here tonight from the HSIP. Safety is a concern here because we're now looking at congestion and cars looking at going different directions. So they might be using Headley or Stubtoe or School Lane or Union to get off of East Main Road to maybe try to get to West Main, or trying to find those side streets because there's a lot of decent apps right now that you're stuck in traffic. Hey, I found a better road. So that is one of our concerns safety-wise, that putting a road diet in would maybe make it a little bit better, but you're ultimately pushing now issues to other items. We're putting cars on side roads, and we are putting West Main Road possibly could have more cars. So the next video on the next slide is the AM peak southbound. Yes, please. So in general, when we do a VISA model like this, it would be a little more elaborate. All the data is in here, but usually if I was showing it to the public, it would have pretty cars, it would have all kinds of different stuff. So just go with me for right now. Can you pause it for a second? We are looking at right now Turnpike. So we are going to be going southbound, starting at Turnpike. And you'll notice when we get closer to Quaker Hill Road, that's where the road diet is going to drop from the 4 lane, or that's where the road diet is going to start. It's going to drop from those 4 lanes to 1 lane in each direction. This is usually because we need the capacity at the traffic signal for left turns, right turns. So we have to come back out to, most of the signals will have the full 4 lanes. So if you start playing it and you watch the southbound traffic, sorry, I know, thank you. So when you watch the southbound traffic, you'll notice that the cars are kind of slowing down a little bit as they try to merge from those 2 lanes to 1. But in general, it runs pretty smoothly. You're not seeing a ton of congestion. You are seeing a little platooning. So, you know, cars are set together, and when there's a slower car, they do kind of join up as a group. Can you pause it one more time? This is Town Access Road right here in Headley. Due to reducing it from 2 lanes to 1 lane in the southbound direction, you can now kind of see that Headley has multiple cars backing up. They're having less gaps or spaces to get out. So they're having a harder time getting out. So you can see it kind of queues back, and then middle is now it's getting blocked. Sorry. So you can see there's a little congestion right there in the AM, but in general, it's at least moving. It's it's doing its thing. We're happy. And we're getting closer to stub toe right now, which is going to bring it, pause over time. It's bringing it back to 4 lanes. And as you kind of noticed in the video, it is going about 20, 25 miles per hour for the cars, with only some queuing when it comes to the drop lanes or coming back, getting kind of just back acclimated to getting back 2 lanes. And as we finish this video, you can watch this signal. All the cars that are in that queue right now process and we'll get through fine. So see, they all clear out very fast and you're left with no cars. So that's what I was talking about, is it's about 97% clear, the traffic signal. Next slide. So the next video, once again, I apologize, it is a rough draft still, so it would be prettier if I had spare time. But this is the PM, oh, that's AM again. Thank you. I was gonna say, PM just looked a lot better. So this is the PM. We are actually gonna start bottom or south to north. So we're starting at stub toe. Can you pause it for a second? Thank you. So we're starting at stub toe in Fairview Lane. So you can see the difference right there to the right at St. Barnabas. I want you to look at queuing. This is a little bit farther up on this video. You'll see where we drop the 2 lanes to 1. So you'll start seeing where it gets backed up, and you'll understand a little bit about why we can't process as many cars. Thank you. So you can see they're slowing down on the right, and you can kind of start seeing that there's a really long queue. We're struggling to get the cars to kind of go through. You can see everyone's backed up. Can you pause it for 1 second? I know in general, like I said, it was a little more refined. All the data is in there, but if it was a little more refined, you'd see side roads. But at this point in the video, some of our concerns are, you can see how many cars are backed up one to another. And so you're not getting out of any of those side roads. You know, maybe Pine Tree Road would be a road that people would be trying to shoot through. You know, so we have a few issues with like Ethel and Sea Meadow might not even be able to get out of their driveway or their roadways because of all the traffic. Thank you. And so we are coming up on Headley. You can see it's just bumper to bumper traffic. We're trying to get through. You can see Middle Street is now really backed up. They cannot find a gap anywhere to get out. Once again, it picks up a little bit, but then it hits that traffic again as we approach Turnpike. When you watch this signal, you'll see that the cars get in the queue, but then after the cycle of the traffic signal goes through, there's still cars that are coming, but they can't get there in time because they're in a long queue. So this is where I was talking about, it's just not processing all the cars. We're only processing about 65%. So kind of moving forward, RIDOT is not recommending the road diet on this road, just due to the speeds and the safety concerns that are out there. I know that the STC had discussed at one time when they repaved the roadway, maybe putting in a pilot program for the road diet. And I know that is something that was discussed before the analysis took place. And so it's now something that I believe STC will be discussing again, having all the knowledge on their plate. But moving forward and looking at the long-term aspects, which is the last part of the RSA, is figuring out, okay, we know there's still some items that need to be addressed. Where are we going to go from there? These items, one of the big ones would be to road widen, you know, East Main Road. We're talking making the lanes 12 feet wide, getting a little bit of a shoulder. These are items that could ultimately help the roadway and its capacity. But with that comes, where is the funding? Where is it going to come from? HSIP is a program that is what the RSA is set under. It's a safety program, but when you do a road widening, it wouldn't go through the HSIP. That's outside of their scope because they are limited with federal fundings, and the money that HSIP has to go to the whole state. And so it's a balance of trying to make sure all safety programs are addressed. So the funding option would be to go through the TIP application, which is what the 3 projects that we had previously seen were through. So I think the ultimate suggestion, which is where the RSA is currently going in the draft report, would be to ultimately have the town look at maybe trying to get a TIP application ready to widen East Main Road. And just quick numbers, I know a lot of times, what does that mean to us? How does that affect? What's the bottom line? I know that some quick calculations were done, and they were looking at about like $6 million per mile. So it'd be about $30 million, I believe, altogether to maybe widen this whole entire road. Yeah, so that's a really quick and dirty number that we tried to give you guys an idea of about what it would take. And like, for example, the HSIP program, I think 30 million is about 2 years of our our money that we have from the federal government. So that kind of gives you a general summary of what has been being looked at for the road safety assessment, a little bit more knowledge on the road diet and kind of the analysis that went through, the further discussions of the next steps that the RSA will ultimately kind of be looking at.
Okay, thank you so much. I think what I will do is start with taking questions from the town council and comments, and then we'll move to the participants. So let's see. I see on our town council, Ms. Abbott.
Thank you, Ms. Ujifuza. I appreciate it. I just want to say thank you to, and I'm sorry, I missed your name at the beginning.
It's Sky.
Hi. It's really awkward to not be able to do this in person. I wish we could be talking face to face, but so is life. So here we go. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for coming and doing this presentation. I think I wrote the resolution that requested this safety assessment, and I think there was some question as to whether we should do it or not, and I'm really glad that we did. I think I reviewed the draft report already, and I think to this point it's already been tremendously helpful in providing some context and information to help us, kind of figure out the right pathway forward. And I think I just want to say that fixing East Main Road and making it a safer road for our residents and our families to drive on is the number one priority for me, and I think some of my colleagues would agree because we've discussed priorities in the next year several times now. I do think it is I know it's the number one issue that my constituents reach out to me about, their concerns regarding East Main Road, talking about how scared they are to drive on it, how concerned they are to let their 16-year-olds learn how to drive on it, and how they really need to do something and work with you guys to find a solution to make the road safer. So I really appreciate you guys taking this on and doing it, and I look forward to working together to find the best solutions for us. I will also say that after the resolution passed and our request went in to do this safety assessment, I had dozens and dozens of people reach out to me and thank me and thank the council for taking that step and requesting that safety audit. And I it's become pretty clear that there's no silver bullet and there's no one clear-cut answer that's going to make everybody happy. Whatever solution we pick, there's always going to be somebody that's unhappy about it. But I have gotten a tremendous amount of feedback with regards to what we should or should not do and what we should or should not try. And I think overwhelmingly, the feedback has been very positive, and people want us to take measures to increase safety and to prioritize safety over anything else. And I think that's what we need to keep in mind as we go. So 2 things, because I did have a chance to review the report that we got this morning. And you mentioned it briefly in your presentation, but one omission that I found from the report is a more detailed discussion of the lane widths. You quoted it as 10 feet. I've heard from others in town that it's 9 feet wide in most places. And that is by far the #1 concern people have. It is uncomfortable to drive on. It's scary to drive on with lanes that narrow. I think that is the #1 issue we need to address. I think it leads to a lot of issues when you have school buses that have to drive and stop on it, when you have UPS drivers, post office trucks. East Main Road is our primary transportation route for Portsmouth. I believe a majority of our residential neighborhoods rely on it to get around town because we have neighborhoods that don't interconnect. Is your only option from getting from one to the other. And with narrow lanes, you feel like you're taking your life into your own hands when you're, everybody's driving fast, people are passing you, and I think that the lane width is the #1 concern and complaint I get from constituents across the board. So that is something that absolutely must be addressed. I also believe that for RIDOT recommendations, the minimum lane width is 11 feet. So any solution that we consider or are putting on the table should at a minimum be meeting that design standard. We should not really compromise on a solution that achieves anything less. The other omission that I found in your report was a more detailed discussion of the intersection at Turnpike too, because right now, as is, that's the one place you do see a little bit of queuing. And I think it's just this is my opinion, but I think we need a better assessment of that intersection because it's just a poorly configured intersection. It doesn't flow, it's very confusing. The main through, to go straight through the light from Turnpike, you're going into the parking lot of a grocery store. So people that aren't used to the intersection have no idea which way to go. We have had some accidents there, but I think that's where we have the majority of our traffic concerns. So when looking at your model, some questions arise, like, did the model include improvements to the intersections? Why did the model only have the road diet from Turnpike to Stubtoe when we have really narrow lanes and several accidents have happened from, south of that? I would envision that we'd have to assess the whole length of it for safety improvements because the lane width are concerned for the whole length. And I think something else that we need to kind of keep in mind is that, Portsmouth from the 1970s to now, we used to be a farming town. We've taken all our farms, chopped them up into residential neighborhoods, add suburban households, and the unfortunate consequence of that is extra cars. So we have more cars on our roads. We didn't improve the roads and our infrastructure to meet that demand. And now we're at a crossroads where we need to decide how to manage that and make our roads safer. So I think, you presented a great report, and I skimmed through some of the most important sections, but I think your report doesn't actually mention widening the road at all. So my first question was, if that is an option, like what would the timeline be on that? In the meantime, can we do a closer evaluation of a road diet for the whole length of it so we can address our lane width issues? And I don't think we can look at it in isolation. Should we look at West Main Road at the same time? Because I think that would be kind of the goal, is to make East Main Road safer and have more through traffic or out of town traffic travel on West Main Road. That might require improvements there. Can we run the model with some of the intersection improvements? Because some of the concerns that you brought up, queuing of cars on the side streets, what I see as an issue now is people on side streets driving for 10 minutes, zigzagging through back roads to get to the one road, you know, a mile down that has a stoplight, because otherwise it takes them 15 minutes to be able to take a left out of their driveway onto East Main Road. Another concern and an issue that I see is people stopping in the middle of East Main Road because they have to take a left onto a road. Meanwhile, traffic is zooming by you at 45 miles an hour. And I think your accident statistics kind of reinstate that, because I think there's 47% of accidents are rear endings. I think a lot of them happen when people are stopped in the middle of the road to take a left. So yeah, left turning lanes for lights. But how many of those box outs can we do? Like, can we do box outs at all our major intersections? Because we have Headley doesn't even have a light, and that's another concern. We have Stubtoe. Are we going to box that out? You mentioned McCory. We have Union Street also. All the left turning cars at each of those intersections backs up traffic because they're waiting to turn left while there's full speed traffic going by them. So I think I'd like your recommendation of doing a closer study of a road diet, but I would like to expand that because I think we need to look at intersection improvements, you know, model West Main Road at the same time. So I think that needs to be the #1 priority. Is like, what is the most cost-effective way to make East Main Road safe now? Because you recommend widening the road. I look at that and we can't wait 15, 20 years to widen East Main Road and make it safer. You know, I think one of the statistics was that a road diet could reduce the number of accidents by 40%. I mean, that's a huge reduction. I agree. I have huge concerns about whether it's the right solution or not, but we need realistic solutions that we can implement now to make East Main Road safer. Because frankly, I think we're lucky that we haven't had more fatalities on East Main Road, and I don't really want to wait until we have more. But the primary concerns are lane width, turning left, not having a shoulder, and we need a comprehensive solution for the whole corridor that addresses all those issues. And yes, your report has a lot of like great high impact, low cost solutions that can be implemented now, and I think those are great. Yes, please, let's do them right now. I think the traffic, adding a traffic signal at Linden Lane is extremely important. Adding those crosswalks at Headley Street, at St. Barnabas, at Quaker Hill are extremely important. I think we've added some dynamic speed feedback signs. I don't know if those are the signs that tell you what speed you're going. Maybe I'm incorrect, but we have added some of those, and I believe it has helped some. One of the recommendations that you made is installation of a bump out curb extension at Headley, St. Barnabas, and Quaker Hill lane crosswalks. I don't see how you do that with lanes that are only 10 feet wide already. So I think this is an excellent start. It's a great information to help us make some decisions, but we need a implementation plan from Turnpike down to Sandy Point Lane, shall we say, that addresses the needs of all the road users and solves our lane width problem. I think that's all I have for now. Sorry, I took a lot of notes as we were going. The content of your presentation was a little bit different from the content of the report, so I'm kind of trying to consolidate all of it. And I think for me, my request going forward is let's look at the best long-term comprehensive solutions for the whole corridor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Abbott. Is there anyone else on the town council? All right, I see Mr. Katzman.
Can I address some of those items first before we just
Yeah,
talk?
I'm sorry, of course, thank you.
When you're doing virtual and trying to balance everything. I greatly appreciate all the comments, and I did want to bring up a few items just so everyone is aware. When we did the state group, the people that met for the road safety assessment, we took all of the crashes and we went through every single one of the intersections on East Main Road, every single one. And we had, I mean, the slides were, I think it was 60 or 70 slides that we had in the PowerPoint to go over what kind of crashes were happening there, what were the trends, and then we had the stakeholders to discuss. So we did look at those, and there is that information. When you talk about the road diet also, and saying that we only looked at one small section, we actually looked at it from the town line all the way up to Turnpike. One of those small issues that we have when you're doing a road diet is if you look at south of Stubtoe, you have a traffic signal, and then like 1,000 or 15 feet later, there's another traffic signal. And one of the things when you do a road diet, you really don't want to have the 4 lanes that you have to open up at an intersection and then drop it to 2 lanes for 200 feet and then spread it back out for the next intersection and then drop it. And so we actually had a discussion with our stakeholders, and we had figures that we discussed with them that showed the overall whole entire corridor, 5 miles of, we can do a road diet for here, and there's 6,000 feet. There's 100 feet here, so we're gonna throw that one out. There's 100 feet here, we're gonna throw that one out. So when we discussed it, we looked at that first, the biggest section between a signal and a signal, so that we could get an accurate idea. It has been discussed, we could possibly do we could look at a road diet over into the middle, like over into the Middletown side. There is that borderline, there is a bigger gap between traffic signals. That would also involve getting Middletown involved and having those discussions. But I do want to let you know that we didn't just pick one small area. There was a lot that went into the analysis, and we did look at the whole entire corridor. Third question, I'm trying to.
Let me stop you for a second. I'm confused. So you looked at the road diet in between the intersections?
No,
But not-
we can't look at, when you have traffic signals so close together, you don't want to confuse the driver by going in and out and in and out and in and out. You really need a decent distance. We're talking probably 15,000 feet plus, and that takes into account that you need to have the full build out. So when you look at a full build out for the traffic signal, I'm going to need probably 500 to 800 feet to get those left turn lanes, the right turn lanes, and get the enough queuing so that when the traffic signal turns green, I can process all of those cars through. So when we looked at the whole entire corridor, we calculated certain, like the amount that a road diet would be able to be accommodated between the signals. And that's where we ultimately came up with Turnpike to Stubtoe, because it was the longest section that we could do a road diet in.
That's Steve. And just to add to that, when we did look at this, as Guy says, you know, the location of the signals was a big part in how far we went with looking at it. And the northern part, being a long stretch, that's where the pilot was kind of, if we were to try a pilot, that would be the most appropriate area. When we went further with the analysis and saw what type of congestion would result from running it in the best area that would be most accommodating to it was clear that a road diet is going to be very difficult on this road. Okay. So with that, and I was hoping it would work. And then once we see the analysis and see the congestion and see how it would back up through side streets and be able to access East Main Road from getting out of side street or driveway, that's where our recommendation would be to not move forward with it. Even as a pilot, it's clear that there's too much traffic on the road. It would be a problem for congestion, and as Sky said, could move any safety improvements you get to safety concerns in other areas that people possibly, after going 10 miles an hour East Main Road, speeding through residential side streets to get around congestion. So that's our big concern, one of our big concerns.
So I have a question. So if lane widths is our biggest issue, are the two solutions for it are the road diet or widening of the lanes, right? how do we handle residential, because East Main Road has a lot of residential neighborhoods that spill into it. And we can't have stoplights at every single one of them. How do we handle residential flow into East Main Road when it's a challenge to cross 2 lanes of traffic going 45 miles an hour? Like, how can we alleviate that? What are our options?
Right, so that is, that's a tough consideration, with, and you gotta remember, this is a road safety audit. We're looking at the crashes and trying to mitigate them in the best way possible. When we start talking about tire corridors and changing traffic patterns, it kind of takes on a bigger study that's not just looking at regarding road transportation throughout the network and the balance of where traffic goes based on other improvements as well. So that is something where I'm not saying it's not appropriate. I'm saying under a road safety audit, a lot of those issues are kind of above where we would be trying to make those safety.
Yeah. Okay. So when you talk about widening the road, I know you mentioned making each of the lanes 12 feet wide, which seems like it would be the appropriate width for that road. Would you be adding a turning lane along the entire length? So would be widening the whole corridor to 5 lanes so that we can accommodate cars that are turning left, either from East Main Road stopping in traffic to turn left, and roads coming in from the residential neighborhoods and trying to turn left? Or would that not be included in the widening?
Right, so that would be, it depends. I mean, right now, there's no scope for that type of project. That would be something, as we alluded to, that we kind of put together and then sent to statewide planning for inclusion. The thing that does tend to make it difficult is, the price tag. As you said, there's a lot of residents along the road, there's a lot of considerations, a lot of utilities along. So to go forward with a project like that is something that really needs to be vetted through statewide planning and through.
Yeah, and I know it's probably the figure of $30 million, but in Portsmouth, one of the big issues is the majority of our utility poles along East Main Road are, ranging from 6 inches to 2 feet off the roadway. So all those utilities would have to either get moved or undergrounded. Would that $6 million per mile figure that you quoted include undergrounding of all those utilities, or would that be an extra cost on top of that?
I don't believe that would include undergrounding. Underground, if you start putting utilities in the ground, the price goes up. It's not that. It's a nice proposal, but that gets to be a very expensive proposal.
Yeah, but I mean, if the utility poles are in the way, then there's not too many alternatives to doing that. I guess, okay, so bear with me here a minute. I'm just trying to think through all the options. So here's the hard question. I think we have to exhaust all our options and really consider what are the alternatives are, very seriously to decide the right course of action. Widening the road, improving the turnpike intersection so that it flows better, because I do think that is our number one bottleneck. Relocating or undergrounding all the utilities so that we can properly widen the road, add a shoulder, add sidewalk. That's getting to be like an extremely expensive project. What if at the end of the day, they say that that's too expensive, we're not gonna be able to do it for about 20 years? Like, at what point can we choose safety over, a little bit of extra queuing at our stoplights? Because I think that is the question: is do we want to minimize accidents, or do we want to minimize queuing at lights? That seems to be the trade-off a little bit. And I think we can probably do the studies also to figure out what the correct long-term solution is. But our concern now is, like, what can we do now to improve safety along the whole corridor. And it I don't know, it doesn't appear like we have great options, but you know, what are our options if the solution that you're providing isn't going to happen for 20 years and we keep having a high number of accidents every year?
Right, so this, and when we do a road safety audit, a road safety assessment, as Scott was saying, we kind of lump everything into short-term, mid-term, and long-term. The town would really need to be the champion of that long-term project to get it in the tip, and possibly fund it. So, you know, that's when we look at road safety audit assessment, those are things that we can point out that would be helpful situation. But as far as how it gets funded and so forth needs to be championed by the town through the Department of Statewide Planning.
Okay, so the road diet feasibility evaluation that's in your list of implementation recommendations in the report, is that what you've already done and presented to us, or do you think there's a more detailed study that should be done or could be done?
No, I think that is so. Again, due to COVID, but this draft was written in March, so it was sent out to the working group early March. You know, when people was reviewing comment, then we kind of got started with COVID, and we kind of started going through that look at the road diet, and then we met virtually with the working group in May, I believe, and kind of showed a lot of the things we showed here with the, you know, what the virtual analysis showed would happen if the lanes were used on East Main Road volumes. And it was just looking at it, it was kind of agreed that, yeah, this is something that would be tough for commuters or anyone that uses East Main Road. Miles an hour don't understand how that's really bumper to bumper traffic and a crawl. So that being said, it was kind of obvious that that would be something that moving forward we could have.
Okay, and Sky, did you want to wrap up your responses?
I was going to say one other comment, just as all of you look at the draft and look at some of those things. When you look at the improvements, a lot of the improvements, we start to the left in trying to get stuff done as soon as possible. And when you talked about bump outs and how it didn't seem feasible, there is a stipulation on that when you read the full thing. And it says, in conjunction with previous improvements and evaluations, which to put in a bump out, we were ultimately thinking if a road diet worked, we'd have, you know, extra space, so therefore we could try to assist the vulnerable road users along that road, and that was one of the options. So some of the long-term do build off of the near-term, so you can't always just jump to the long-term. You need to, some of them play back and forth, and you'll notice that when you look at the matrix in the report, is there's a lot of them that are like, if the road diet on, you know, it's 1.19 is the road diet where we mentioned to evaluate that and analyze it. Other items will refer back to that 1.19 and say, if that happened, this is something we would like you to look at. So just keep that in mind when you do look at all of these items, that they kind of build off of each other. It's not just a standalone item.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. And now, Mr. Katzman, you had a question or comment?
Thank you very much, Vice President Rujifuza. I'll be just a little bit more brief than Councilman Abbott. We have I understand there's a moving target, things are moving forward, but to hear that you're looking at all the way from Turnpike to Mitchell's Lane, the Middletown line. It's been mentioned there's a draft report that's been circulated amongst some. The council members just got this morning. And so I get, and even the presentation you gave this evening is updated from the presentation that was added to our evening's agenda. So I recognize this is something that is ongoing. So what I'd like to know is a couple things. When can we get, well, first of all, can we get a copy of tonight's presentation? But also, when do you anticipate getting the final report so that we can fully evaluate the options and the pluses and minuses of each option? I know that there's a lot in the report that rolls out from other things, but you have 46 mitigation measures, only 3 of which have to do with a road diet. One is do the road diet, and the other 2 of those 3 are if you do a road diet, then some follow-on things. So there's a lot here that can be done near term and immediate term that doesn't have anything to do with a road diet. And we do know that every option can come with its pluses and minuses. The road diet could lead to higher traffic issues on Middle Road, for example, any of the side streets. So in order to really fully evaluate it all, I'd like to know when the final report might be released.
So first of all, I do apologize. I think there was a little miscommunication as we went. I tried to give a presentation and we got some extra details that you guys wanted more RSA stuff. So I was trying to throw things in. So I really do apologize. We definitely weren't trying to keep any information from you. It's just rolling and having fun with COVID at the moment, trying to make sure everyone can talk. And sometimes in person is so much easier to get items across. So I do apologize in that regard. When it comes to the report, one of the items when we met with the stakeholders in that May meeting was they asked to have us discuss with the town council the road diet, because that was a big issue in that item. And so we weren't planning on finalizing the report until we spoke with you guys, because we wanted to make sure you guys had the same information that they had, so when you saw the report, I can also, as it's still being in draft, can include some of this analysis that we have been working on and trying to evaluate as we go. So honestly, once I get, having this meeting and getting some of the comments, and I can go back and add a little bit, I call it meat, to my road diet section, give you some more information of what happened with the analysis. It shouldn't take long to finalize the report. The other item, oh man, I forgot the other item that you asked. Oh, so you talked about the near term and immediate term. When it comes to immediate term, I do already have on board, like I said, I have the work order, which when you look at, I don't have the matrix in front of me, but when you look at it, it was like.
Don't ask, Mark.
Sorry. So when you look at the matrix, you'll see there's like the corridor and the signs and all that information. Those have already been completed and are ready for review. I was planning on the final.
I think we lost audio.
Did we lose audio? Sorry. Sky, are you there?
It sounds like we lost him.
Oh, no.
Give it a second.
Yeah.
Hang on.
It looks like they're still talking. Oh, no, that's the recording button.
They're froze.
Oh, dear. So-
This happened at the water board meeting the other night.
Oh, no. Okay.
Oh, they're gone.
Oh, now we really
Here comes
No.
back. Give it a second.
Yep. It's good. It means they realize that they need to do something.
There we go. Movement.
Well, the video seems live, but they're still muted.
No, there they go.
There they are. Hello?
Hi.
You're back.
Hey.
Okay.
So I have no idea where you guys left off, so I really apologize. But like I was saying, and obviously it wasn't important because it cut me off, but we be completed almost when the final report comes in. So we have been working behind the scenes to try to get all that stuff done.
That's great. And just to clarify for folks who may not have heard everything you said, in your report, you have short-term, medium-term, and long-term goals, and you're already working to help us move towards achieving those short-term goals, and we really appreciate that. We do want the public to be able to understand the report and be able to view it, and you're saying that it will be available shortly. And so that's a summation of, I hope, the major points that we've been covering. Let's see, Mr. Katzman, are you done with your comments? Yes, okay. Is there anyone else on the town council who wishes to speak?
Sorry, I do have one more comment.
Oh, all right, Ms. Abbott, we'll let you wrap that up. Go ahead.
I would just say that in conjunction with all this work, we do have two projects that are in the STIP. I think they're 1379 and 1380 that are paving and sidewalks for East Main Road. And I mean, this is obviously up to RIDOT, but I think there's some coordination between those projects and these improvements would probably be in work in everybody's favor.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Abbott. Did you want to respond to that?
Add to that, we have our project management section does look at projects in areas and tries to funnel them. So we will certainly efficiencies by doing it in that respect. So help with that and make sure that everything will be decent.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Mr. Hamilton.
Thank you, Madam President. First question, when was this study completed? Specifically the traffic counts?
So I was going to say, the traffic counts that you see, that 24,800 was from 2018, 2019, 2018. Sorry, my brain. It was from 2018. We did look at it back in 2015. Then we looked at 2019 when we did the RSA. And then we have kept up with looking at this item during COVID because obviously traffic and all that kind of been blown out of the water. And when we were looking at it, I believe a few days ago, it was still in about the 20,000 range. So it's still rather high along your corridor, even if it has happened.
Okay. So do you know what months those were done in 2018 and 2015?
Oh man, you're testing my knowledge and remembering stuff.
Well, it's an important number because if we do a study in February when it's raining out, like the pictures portray, the traffic counts are a lot less than a Friday afternoon in July.
Correct.
So I mean, if that's an average on a daily basis, not including July and August, then the average is higher, and the delays get even larger.
So it's an annual average daily traffic. So those are calculated looking at the whole. And when we did traffic counts, we always look at multiple days. So we always make sure to compare a cold, yucky February day with a beautiful beach day to try to compare and make sure that it is in line. We don't try to pick the highest or the lowest. We try to make sure that it's relatively within a similar number. So the numbers that you saw that are in that video, I believe were a May day. Midweek is usually always when we do it. We never do Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Those days work differently. Mondays, you know, we slept in, we didn't want to go to work. Fridays, woohoo, let's get out of work, let's leave early. And then Saturdays always. So usually those days are always Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and it was in May. Like I said, in general, the numbers, when we looked at them across the board, were all very similar regardless of the February. And I mean, we're talking like 1,000 cars here and there. But one of the main takeaways that I'd like you to understand is the DHV and the daily hour volume, which is about 15,000. Didn't change much during the peak hours across the board. Even though maybe the overall first went slightly down. That DHB is one of the other factors that really dictates my road diet. So I can't process in a road diet more than 1,500 vehicles at traffic signal. Like it doesn't work. And so that number stayed consistent regardless. That's
Okay.
it. Answer?
Thank you. Steve, we have, as Ms. Abbott mentioned, project numbers are a little bit different, but 1378 is already done. That was Route 24. But we have a continuing project that has been bounced back for about 20 years now called the Town Center Project, which has been now condensed from 3 rotaries to 2 rotaries. Now we're down to 1 roundabout, excuse me. I'm going back to the old Cape days, roundabouts. Which specifically is at the intersection mentioned earlier at Clements, Headley, and Clements Turnpike and the northern part of East Main Road, which has about $15 million in it. And then repaving of East Main Road, which has about $9 million in it. So that gets us roughly halfway there to, or excuse me, 2/3 of the way there to moving telephone poles back and widening the roads and extending out the drain lines and making a much safer road. I'm sure somewhere within the heart of the DOT, in order to make East Main Road and Portsmouth and Middletown a lot safer and more convenient for both, not only our citizens, but the visitors who are the lifeblood of the funding stream for the state of Rhode Island that come to Newport, nicer, more complete roads and safer roads, we could possibly find that extra $10 million to do these projects sooner. My concern is that we piecemeal it together. When we talked about doing the sidewalks and the repaving up on the northern section of East Main Road, it was do the sidewalks and then come back in a year and do the pavement, which would have left holes in the sidewalks and the edge of the pavement for 2 years. So I think we need to have a larger conversation to make sure that we are coordinating this to get it all done and done correctly and done right. I am of the thought process that undergrounding the poles has got to be god-awful expensive and in the $50 or $60 million range if you're in the $30 million range just to move poles back, and you're not even including the Middletown section. You're just doing the 5 miles of the Portsmouth. I'm sure Middletown would love to have East Main Road repaved as well, and it doesn't make any sense to do it halfway. So I would like to see a better coordination of the $15 million that we have in the queue, roughly $15 million, excuse me, 15 and 9, so geez, that's $24 million. So we're almost 80% of the way there to get this project done, just with money that's already allocated within the state program, if we want to look at doing the entire length of East Main Road and making it safer. It needs to be done. We've been promised this for, give or take, 45 years now. So I think it would be helpful if both the RIDOT and the town of Portsmouth get together to look at how we can get this done sooner rather than later. I know the paving program is scheduled to happen in 2021 or 2022. But if we pave it and don't make any other improvements to it, it's just going to become a greater speedway. So I think we need to look at all those. And if you look at doing, what is the other one? The Wacory Lane widening. If we look at doing that as well and throw that money in there as well, we're almost to the $30 million to fix the whole thing. So I know we have a few of our state representatives on here. And I would like to hope that with RIDOT, who's been very cooperative and worked with us in the past, we can get this all done sooner rather than later and avoid the extension of another 20 years or adding 20 years to the 45 that we've waited already.
Thank you, Mr.
That's all,
Hamilton.
Madam.
Thank you. Do you have any comments you want to make, Steve, Sky?
He's trying.
I would, we just want to say, like, our estimate is a very back of the envelope estimate. we didn't, that based on the past costs. Is accurate, but I don't want everyone to.
Okay. Well, thank you for
That's very preliminary.
All right, thank
I
you.
have an additional question, if I may.
Okay, let's make it quick here.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm sure everybody's like sick of hearing my voice, but I guess my question is the roundabout at Turnpike. It's a very challenging intersection, and I think that's probably the best solution for traffic flow at that intersection. Do you think a roundabout at Turnpike in conjunction with a road diet would a roundabout have any impact on the success of a road diet?
At Turnpike, well, the road diet, as far as roundabout, so the roundabout really would replace the signal. The actual use with the road diet happened between the signals. That's what the analysis occurred, and that's where the traffic was heavy. The road diet would, believe it or not, they're very efficient. So it might actually get the queue started earlier if it was a road diet, but it would be something that would happen.
Okay, and then here's another. Yeah, no, I'm done. I'm good for now. Sorry.
All right, thank you so much. I know that very patiently one person has been waiting with his hand up, so I'm going to recognize him as well as read a couple questions that have come in through our question and answer online system. So we'll start with Thomas E.
That's right. Hi, so my name is Thomas Ayer. I actually live at 181 East Main Road. I've lived here my entire life, actually. So I've watched East Main Road grow for 26 years. I do have two questions and then some comments for the whole group, if that's okay. My questions are, do you have in front of you the data on the number of pedestrians, both using those crosswalks and would be using the sidewalks, and what the crash data on East Main Road is versus the expected normal for a road such as this?
So when it comes to the pedestrians using the crosswalk, we usually don't pull that information until we look at an improvement, just because counting every single intersection, and I will let you know that there are over 800 state crosswalks, and I have looked at them, but I have not evaluated them. So we don't usually evaluate and pull pedestrian crossings at each state one. So I do not have that, except for the RFB location. I do have it because I usually don't put one in unless we have certain data to be able to back that up. So at every crosswalk, I do not have it along East Main Road. When it comes to crashes along the corridor, I do have that information. We used, as I kind of previously talked about, we used 2013 to 2017 data. The reason why it's not pulled through 18, we started the RSA in 19, and I know it sounds weird, but most of the crashes aren't finalized until mid-19, so we're almost a year behind. So those were the most current years for the 2019 RSA. So don't think that we just skipped a few years. So when we looked at the data from 2013 to 2017, we had a little less than, oh gosh, you're making me add numbers over here, a little less than 1,500 crashes during that 5-year period. The main takeaway from that is when we look at crashes, especially from the safety aspect, we put them into buckets of, there's 5 different buckets that are classified under CAPCO. With this roadway, 80% of those crashes were PDO, or just property damage only. So as there are a lot of crashes along the road, about 1,300 out of the 15 were just personal damage only. When it comes to trying to compare them and rank them, states through, or roadways throughout the state, we do have like the top 10 roadways in Rhode Island. East Main Road didn't fall on that one just because of how the crashes and the severity of those crashes fell. We do have other roadways that are similar to East Main Road, which we did discuss when we had the stakeholders together for the RSA, that are similar design, kind of layout, development along the corridor. And we discussed that as East Main Road does have a lot of crashes, when it comes to some of the more severity, it was not as high as some of the other crashes. So I don't have a specific number. If you're looking for me to tell you it's X number on the list of all the corridors, but I can tell you it's not on the top 10 for the state of Rhode Island.
Right. So I mean, I was just basically looking for it's, you know, what the threshold is like. So if it's, you know, 1,500 crashes in 5 years, we would only expect 1,000. So that's 50% more than we would expect. That's a lot. Versus if you expected 1,700, that's actually less. So yeah, it sounds like a lot, but when you have a road, you have crashes, right? So, okay.
If you have a road, we want to look at the severity, and that's usually our main takeaway of, you know, kind of ranking them and figuring out how to put them in a list.
Sure. So, okay. Just a couple of comments, you know, as someone that lives on East Main Road, this is something, you know, very near and dear to me. It concerns me a lot of the things that are being suggested and said. I mean, Mr. Hamilton said a lot of things that made a lot of sense to me. You know, let's combine efforts. Let's try to get this all done in one foul swoop. Because nothing is more frustrating than seeing a freshly paved road and then a year later they dig it up for water lines or something, right? And then you have this bumpy thing that's no better than it was 2 years ago, and that's the worst. But you know, when we're looking at all the money we're trying to spend, crosswalks and sidewalks, you know, the amount of pedestrians that you see on East Main Road is very, very little. So that might be something that you can use to better allocate funds. But, you know, as far as the road diet and, you know, slower speeds and everything, there are many studies shown that slower speed limits and all that don't increase safety, and it in fact does the opposite. It's very concerning to me that we want to just slow down traffic on this road and add more congestion, because there's already a lot of congestion. If I try to leave the island at rush hour in the afternoon, right, and I try to go up over this Connet River Bridge, it takes me way longer than it should to get off. And that, you know, you get stuck at Stubtoe, you get stuck, like you said, at Turnpike. That one's not as bad, but there's so many lights, so many traffic lights. And that's just, you know, that's just asking for trouble, because what's going to happen is more people are going to divert to West Main Road, which is already, you know, also very, very crowded. You're going to have people flying down Middle Road. It's going to be more accidents on Middle Road. So just because we need to do something doesn't mean we should do anything. And, you know, just taking action for the sake of taking action is not great. And I personally am terrified of a road diet on this road. You know, it's already a lot of traffic. This is just going to make it way, way worse. And you're talking about adding a light. Is there any way to, like, you know, we put in that light on Glen Road, for instance, right before the elementary school closed. Maybe that one can be taken away and moved to this other light, because there's already so many lights and they're not coordinated in any way. That's so frustrating to drive down. And 20 to 25 miles an hour, you mentioned, is smooth traffic. The speed limit is 35. And based on studies for traffic data, the speed limit really should be 45, right? That's the 85th percentile. That's not smooth. That's slow, and that's frustrating to drivers. But, you know, talking about the road widening and talking about, you know, widening of some intersections, those are all great, and I fully support that. But, you know, we're talking about being scared of driving on the road or turning left onto it. I turn left on it every single day to go to work in the morning across all the lanes. I don't really have that many issues. There's a lot of traffic, but, you know, you can deal with it, especially when you live here. You're very used to it. So it concerns me that we're so concerned with just trying to congest it more to slow it down, because I don't think that that's the right answer at all.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ayer. I would like to just read a couple comments that are being submitted just online. She's been here for a while. This is from Charlotte North. It's number 1, 2 thoughts. As a longtime resident, please let us try to extend the road diet through the entire town. Coordinate with Middletown to have the transition to a road diet from Wyatt Road, Newport Vineyard, or Oliphant Lane, Mitchell's Lane, Brayman's Lane area is dangerous and not helped by the other traffic lights? Number 2, is it possible to explore computer-coordinated traffic signals to improve efficiency despite lower speeds? Pittsburgh, Needham, Quincy, Portland, Maine, and Atlanta have such systems. So those are her one comment, I guess, and one question.
I can address the first one. So that is talking about a road diet south. I think we kind of discussed it a little bit. I just have to be careful because, like I said, there's a lot of traffic signals that I can't do, or we really can't look at doing a road diet in between them and have the traffic go in and out. It is something moving forward if we wanted to coordinate with Middletown to maybe possibly look at, oh gosh, here we go, analyzing the southern portion into Middletown. That would be something we could look at, but I can tell you the overall volumes are still rather high. So I wouldn't expect things to be completely different down there.
And regarding the traffic signals, those are things that we can look into as far as optimizing the flow through those. Most of them are electronic, overall electronic, but they have their like little mini computers that can be coordinated. Sometimes they just need to have like a GPS clock installed. So we'll take a look at that to increase that traffic flow.
Yes. We can't hear you. Computer.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Thank you very much for that comment or that response. I'll move to the next person asking a question. It looks like it's Mr. Fitzmaurice. You have to unmute, Mr. Fitzmaurice.
Hard to find on my screen, sorry. I would point out to the members of the council that we actually did a test of a road diet last Thursday in the approaches, the northbound approaches to the intersection at Turnpike and East Main Road where Clements is. The right-hand lane was closed for some repair work of some sort. And at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that thing was backed up a minimum of a quarter mile and more like a half mile back south of that intersection. We had a reduced volume at that point, and there was nothing really going on the island that I'm aware of, but the traffic did back up. So I think we need to be very careful about reducing a highway with 4 lanes into 2 lanes. I also use East Main Road north of that intersection a fair amount. And even in the middle of the day, it's sometimes very difficult to turn left onto that East Main Road in any direction, of course. So it never was difficult when it was 4 lanes, but it is, well, almost never difficult. But it is difficult now. And I'm talking about now with reduced traffic due to a covoid problem. So at any rate, I want to point out that we already did a test, and it showed that if we go to this road diet with 2 lanes, 1 each way, we're very much likely to get gridlock during transit, during the commute periods. I just think that that's an important thing to say. I'm sure this is not the only time this has happened. I'm sure the police know more about this than I do, but I just make an observation for you. Thank you.
Thank you. I do not see any other hands raised. There is one.
Suji Fusa? I
Yes.
have a question as a citizen.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Your clerk. I have a question as a citizen.
Yes.
With regards to Steptoe, the intersection at Steptoe, East Main Road,
East Main Road going north and south, they have a green arrow. But the light is red in each direction.
Yes, it's
A lot
so
of
frustrating. Yes, I know.
Two cars behind and want to turn left onto Fairview going south.
Yeah.
And they will cut across the traffic.
Right, right. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Coordinated.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. And if there aren't any other comments, let me just try to wrap this up a little bit by summarizing what's going on here. And feel free to stop me if I'm wrong.
Actually, there's two more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you just had the one complaint. I'm sorry, Jen. Continue.
I wanted to ask, I was asking if there would be, considering like Eagle, where they have every direction, they have the light red and one goes, but there are also two more people with their hands up.
Ah, okay. Well, first of all, do our DOT rep or anyone want to respond to Ms. West's question?
Yes, we'll take a look at that. You're right. Typically, we put an advance in one direction just for that reason, and what we typically do, put that in with the highest left turn volume. So we'll take a look at that. That's an old signal, so we'll take a look, see if we can that one.
Because they already have Stubtoe has it, and then Fairview has their own time to turn, but the other way, it's a nightmare.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. There are two more people who have their hands raised. And it is, the first one I see is Representative Terry Corcoran.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you to the staff at DOT and to Scott. I appreciate the efforts that they've made tonight, and I don't really have a question, but I can attest to what is going on at Fairview and Stubtoe since I live right off Fairview. So I thank Steve for looking into that. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person I see is someone named Tom. No last name. Tom?
Yes, it's Tom Grieve, 110 Thayer Drive. I just wanted to applaud Ms. Abbott for listening to her constituents and looking out for their safety. However, anecdotal information can sometimes lead you to wrong decisions. And listening tonight, you would think that East Main Road was the most dangerous road in Portsmouth. It's not. It's not even close. West Main Road has about 20% more accidents, and there are almost 4 times more fatalities. If we do something like looking at East Main Road, we need to look at it in the system of the traffic flow through the town. And RIDOT really needs to be looking at the entire traffic system that they control in town, not just one road. Especially road dieting would put more traffic onto West Main Road, which is the more dangerous of them, and make it even more dangerous. We need to have a full look at how to increase the safety of traffic on state roads in town. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Griff. Let's see if there's anyone else.
Another comment.
Sorry?
There's another couple of comments.
Okay, I will read them. From Thomas Ayer, I believe. Without a copy of this report, if this is available, I would like to know how to access it. It sounds like overall, this was a feasibility report of a road diet. We need more assessments on things like intersection improvement by St. Barnabas and Macquarie, etc., to improve traffic flow and safety as opposed to trying to reduce flow. As Second comment is, also, I know it was mentioned twice, but I cannot stress enough how much we should be pushing DOT to make our traffic lights smarter and coordinated with each other. So those are the two comments I see. Do you want to respond to that, Steve or Sky?
Again, regarding the traffic lights, we will look into that and get that ball rolling. I think our movement was should be able to handle that. First comment was, and as I said, this was brought to us like road safety audits. It's hard. We do have 1,100 miles of state roads throughout the state. So typically, when people do reach out to us saying they're having a big safety concern on a certain road, that's kind of, the way to start going out, looking at the data and conducting such an assessment.
Right.
It's something where.
Madam Vice President, I think that the simple question is, do you have any objection to us posting these presentations and the draft study to our website?
Well, with it being draft, I prefer to finish it, and not that we're trying to hide anything, but sometimes when you start posting things that aren't in their final form, they can get, if they get modified, they can be taken out of context. So I prefer to wait until we do have a final, which again is it's coming. We want to wait until this meeting. If any comments need to be addressed in the actual report.
So the report will be made public after it's finalized, you're saying? Yes, Mr. Katzman?
Yeah, I just want to chime in on that. I mean, I think the very fact that a member of the public thinks it was a feasibility report of a road diet, when in fact it is a lot more than that. I just want to, we all have our workload, and I understand that there's a lot to do. I would just urge the RIDOT to complete the report as soon as they can, so that the public can see all of the as I said, there were 46 recommendations, only 3 of which had to do with a road diet. So I would urge, I respect that we shouldn't release it because it's a draft. That said, now people know there's a draft, so they're going to be eager to see what is seeable.
Right. Well, I want to thank everybody for their comments and for the presentation tonight. I would just like to say that roads, funding roads, how we deal with them is not, it's not only complicated, but it is also very difficult to understand because, for example, the funding and the planning is spread among many layers of government. I know that people have been talking about the TIP or STIP. That is actually not supposedly under the purview of the RIDOT. It is a statewide planning document. And, I have to say that I was confused as well about how money is spent and how we get money to fix our roads, because I happened to notice that in Warwick, there was $71 million spent to put in those little roundabouts. And it did not have to do with the safety issues. It had to do with calming traffic through historic Apponaug. So I think RIDOT has a very complex way of determining how money is spent, which is a bit opaque to me, frankly, but it isn't the purview of the folks who are standing here before us, who I think did an amazing job of doing what we asked them to do, which is to start to examine the safety issues on East Main Road. That was what they tried to do. I think perhaps people are misled into thinking it's just about a road diet, but they were actually looking at all the different safety issues that existed on East Main Road. And I believe that they have just said tonight that they will help us address some of the ones that might be able to be fixed with an immediate rather than trying to deal with gigantic financing mechanisms dealing with widening the road. And so I would suggest that perhaps what we should do going forward is to have our friends who made the report to us tonight finalize the report, make it available to the public for comment, continue to, and the town would be happy to continue to work with you to make sure that some of the short-term goals that you've identified can move forward with funding that might be available. And that, as Mr. Grieve pointed out, that we do a more comprehensive look at the other state road in town, West Main Road, and perhaps we could have you all do a study on that as well. I know that it's not the most smooth path forward, and we're all, trying to answer many questions, but I do feel that progress has been made, and I appreciate so much Councilperson Abbott having started this process in September of 2019. Who knew that we could even get any kind of study done on this? And so I think that we can move forward with you all. Really appreciate your time, everyone's comments, and we look forward to seeing the final report as well as your proposals for getting the short-term fixes in place. So thank you. And does anyone else have anything to say?
No, just thank you for helping us out.
Yes, thank you so much. It's a very difficult issue with competing goals. Okay, so the next, I'm sorry, I should let you, our speakers, is there anything else you wanted to say? Hello, Sky or Steve?
Sorry, we thought we got dismissed.
Oh, sorry. I know, I'm terrible at this. All right. You could
We would,
in the car. You're driving home.
And we would, safety is, it's our number one priority. So
Right.
that's why we reached out to us saying that they have safety concerns.
Right. No, and I know we've thrown so many concerns at you. It's sort of like you said you're from RIDOT, and that meant that every concern we ever had that RIDOT might be able to address was going to be said to you tonight. We appreciate your patience and your taking it all in. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item, I so appreciate everyone's patience on hanging in here. I know that the next issue, which is the approval, discussion and approval of the town council goals, I will hand it back to Mr. Aguirre.
Hold on, I gotta get back in what happened to me. Crash, that was on the iPad. Yeah, I know, I saw it. Just give me 1 second. I'll try to get signed in as we get going. I'll try to watch what I'm talking. But number 2. Okay. Discussion and approval of the town council FY 20-21 goals and priorities for the town administrator. I can't pull anything up with them. So as we saw from Mr. Rayner, he had provided us a very detailed list of his overall goals and objectives that he tackles kind of day in and day out. And these are long-term goals that are addressed throughout the course of the year. Obviously, we're sitting here in the end of August. I think at our last meeting, we had some very good input from the memo, which identified a handful of goals and objectives that I think we, as counselors now, we can see where some of those objectives overlay with what Mr. Rayner has outlined. I think during, some things that we as councilors should try to prioritize for Mr. Rayner revolve around the plan for the recreation facilities. That's something that, we've got our Jacobs report, which identifies several, building deficiencies that we need to address. These are the things that I think should be priorities, that the council should be focused on. That's possibly, having to address the trash situation again. These are a handful of items that are identified in Mr. Rayner's goals. But I think as councilors, we should try to at least highlight, a handful of the priorities that we feel, need to be at the forefront as we move forward. And that we try to make sure that we're addressing and closing the loop on some of the things that are not fall through the cracks. I'll open it up to other councilors to see what your thoughts are. But I think Mr. Rayner did an excellent job of kind of outlining what his course of the year, but it might be helpful for us as councilors to try to, identify what we think from his priorities may be, and we can, all work together to try to make sure we, are able to achieve these goals. So as I said, we log on, so if you guys could jump in, that would be great.
Right. Mr. President, this is Linda Ujifusa. I'll jump in. I think all of the goals, the 5 or 6 that we discussed last time, are in this list. To highlight the top ones for me, and I think some other folks might agree. I hope other folks agree. Number 1 was the master plan. And it's listed here as a recreation master plan, but I think that's actually not correct. It's a recreation, open space, and a master plan that would include all our town properties, including, and this kind of flows into the second goal, including figuring out what to do with the Coggeshall and Ann Hutchinson school buildings. That issue, those old school buildings, are listed under housing. They're a little bit labeled not as I would want them labeled. I think those are 2 really important goals. The master plan, figuring out what to do with those 2 old schools, which are listed under recreation and housing, but I think are actually an important planning document and an important piece of that planning for our buildings. And the third thing would be what we've been discussing for the last hour and a half, which is roads, and making sure that Mr. Rayner continues to work with DOT to make sure that some safety improvements occur on East and West Main Road for all folks who want to use it. That would be my 3. And, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mention trash, the climate change resiliency, the internet issues that I also had listed, only because I feel that those will be dealt with by department heads. The emergency management group, economic development, and and also solid waste has a really strong committee working on this. So I'm confident that those priorities will also be addressed. But the other 3, I put more on Mr. Rayner's goals. That's what I got.
Yeah, some input from other councilors.
Sure, I'll jump in and just double down on what Ms. Ujifusa said. I think for me, there's 2 clear primary goals. Number 1, get, that final report from RIDOT so we can identify some clear next steps to help make East Main Road safer, and then to figure out how we're going to complete a parks, recreation, and open space master plan to address some of our town property issues. I think between those 2 issues, it covers over 80% of the concerns that constituents reach out to me about.
Other councilors?
Yeah, I'll jump in. I was looking at how Mr. Rayner grouped these various issues, the master plan, open space, housing. But in fact, the more I looked at it, the more sense this makes, because all of these things are interdependent. Any sort of major expenditure of cash by the town over the coming year is going to have to take all these things into consideration, and may involve grants, but it also may involve selling one of the town properties. So I think you can't really think about how we're going to solve the problem with the senior center, how we're going to solve the problem, what to do with these two, antiquated school buildings, each separately. I think they have to be considered a common problem with a common solution. And looking at the way Mr. Rayner has grouped these things in his priorities list, it looks like he's thinking along those lines. When you put the senior center in with housing, clearly you're thinking about who can we deal with and how can they help us with this problem. So I think it's a bunch of different goals, but you can't address one without addressing all of them. And if I'm interpreting Mr. Rayner's list here, it looks like that's kind of what he's getting at. And obviously the other things are what everyone else has said. We've got to do something. We have to find a long-term solution to trash disposal in town. Obviously have to keep the roads safe, especially the ones that we have direct control over. And then obviously the first and foremost priority, Mr. Rayner's going to have to come up with another budget next year that gets us through the end of this coronavirus epidemic.
Thank you, Dr. Ryan. I can't see on the screen, so I don't know if anybody else if they're raising their hands or not. The power went, my screen options have gone, so trying.
Mr. President, in the interest of time, I believe these are a good set of goals, and Mr. Rayner has a very good idea from our review earlier this evening and discussion of these goals at the last meeting and the limited discussion we've had here tonight, that I would move that we approve these goals and Mr. Rayner get busy working on them.
I second that, Danielle Abbott.
Okay. And a second, all those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Katzman?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next item on our agenda is the monthly finance report. Ms. Mills.
Honorable Council, attached is the budget update for July 2020. This update represents 8.3% of current fiscal year. Overall revenues are currently at 4%, higher than last year's 3%. Expenditures are at 8%, same as last year's. There are no significant wire or ACH transfers to report. Attached is the monthly report for the Mayor House for July 2020.
Thank you. Any questions from councilors?
Mr. President, yes, I have a quick question. Earlier, we asked for the school department to be included on this report. I'd like to know, A, why it's not here, and B, if we're going to see it next month.
This town administrator. Yes, you will see it the next report, and I think that's just an oversight. I had asked for it. In getting ready for this, we were concentrated on the East Main Road safety assessment, and quite frankly, it's the
No worries. Motion to receive and place on file.
Seconded.
All those in favor?
Ms. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Katzman?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Next, under you.
Mr. Fitzmaurice has a question.
Mr. Fitzmaurice.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We'll have a question about how we ended last year's fiscal year. I know that it takes a month or two to settle this thing down, so we should know what it is by now.
The work is still being completed, so I don't have a definitive number yet.
We
We still are in surplus. We had some additional challenges this year with the new software. So we are running a new software, we're training department heads. I myself have put 600 hours into writing new account numbers, 600 lines. So it's taking away from finishing up the current year, but we will be on time, we'll be on it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Well,
Do we have any more comments, questions? All right, so next item is under new business. We have the Home Ave Safety Improvement Resolution. Mr. Kevich online. I can't. So you're gonna have to help me here. There you go. John, can you hear us?
John's here. Sorry, I had it on mute.
No, that's okay.
John McKevich, 119 Hummock Avenue, Portsmouth, Rhode Island. Council President, members of the Town Council in Portsmouth. It's become obvious with everybody wanting to walk to the Secana River Bridge from Island Park, from the Hummock, or from vice versa the other way. That section of Hummock Avenue that I highlighted in yellow needs to be addressed. The DOT owns 53 feet from the west side of Hummock Avenue to where that red dot is, to the east side. Hummock Avenue is approximately 30 feet wide there. So there's plenty of room on the inside of the guardrail. I've had discussions with the Turnpike and Bridge Authority. They're interested in listening in more. I've had discussions with Representative Edwards. He's doing what he can do. I felt that it would be a good push from the town of Portsmouth in a resolution to the Department of Transportation, imploring them to open up the guardrail at Morris Avenue at Hummock Avenue and allow a 5-foot by blacktop path to go through there on the inside of the guardrail. I ask any of you councilors or anybody in the town of Portsmouth to drive that section tomorrow, and you'll notice on that, right on that same side, the guardrail got hit this weekend, this week. Yeah, I think it was the weekend. All right, and it's a good size hit like that. But if there was somebody standing there, Council President, that person wouldn't be here. A lot of people like to ride their bicycles there. A lot of people like to walk their dogs, including myself. We don't like to get from the Secana River Bridge. So potentially, the town of Portsmouth, the Department of Transportation, the Turnpike and Bridge Authority, and if I have to, I'll even talk to the Department of Environmental Management about putting this together. It was recommended by the DOT initially to go on the tip. Well, the tip is going to take 2 years. I don't think we want to wait 2 years. I'm here 31 years in the Hummock, and I've watched that guardrail on both sides of that section of Hummock Avenue consistently have to be replaced. One of our neighbors sold his houses because he was just tired of waking up and crashes. So I'd ask the council to endorse my resolution. If you need to, I will help write the resolution with the clerk, or the clerk can write the resolution. We send it to the DOT, and we get on notice that that section of Hummock Avenue, it's a quick fix, it's a safety fix, and then we all get to walk to the Secana River Bridge and enjoy that beautiful view now that we don't have to look at the power plant up in Somerset. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you.
No, I would like to add a comment, though. I actually, thank you, Mr. Vitt. I think I actually do drive that intersection every weekend, and I agree with you. It's hideous and outrageous, and it has become very problematic because we have a beautiful bike path on the Secana River Bridge that then ends in nothing. And I would be supportive of improvements in that section. So I make a motion that we approve your proposal and send the recommendation to write-up.
And Andrew Kelly seconds.
I have a motion and a second. Are there any further comments?
Nope. As somebody who walks it on a regular basis, I agree wholeheartedly. It's dangerous coming around that corner.
It is.
Especially with these new damn cell phones.
Easy. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to ask DOT to conduct feasibility of something to that effect regarding a sidewalk. Like that. All those in favor?
Mr. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Capson?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, Town Council President and Portsmouth Town Council.
Okay, thank you, John. Next item is under new business number 2. It's request approval for fireworks display at Driving Tree Coffee House.
Move to approve.
Second.
Who was the first, please?
This is
Andrew
Kelly.
can.
Sorry.
Kelly?
Mr. Kelly?
Andrew Kelly was the first. I was the second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Mr. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Mr. Katzman?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
And Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all. 3, as a request approval for fireworks display at the Quidnet Club.
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
There's no questions, comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Mr. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Katzman?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0.
Mr. President, can I make one quick comment? I know this probably won't go too far, but these are 2 professionally done fireworks displays. If we could please ask homeowners at home to please lighten up on the fireworks in their backyards.
Yes.
Yes, please.
Is that a motion, Mr. Hamilton?
I wish it could be,
Okay.
especially our constituents with dogs.
Yeah.
Actually, it's illegal. Those explosions are illegal. So it's not a request. It's a request to comply with the law.
Right, so we have correspondence.
Move to, motion to receive and place on file.
Second.
All those in favor?
Mr. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Mr. Hamilton?
Aye.
Katzman?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. On to future meetings. We have our next regularly scheduled meeting will be September 14th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. Then we have our Complete Street workshop scheduled for September 16th at 7 p.m. Then our next council meeting will be on September 28th, followed by October 13th, which is a Tuesday meeting.
Mr. President, I have a question. Are we going to have a special Prudence Island Town Council meeting? That usually happens in September, right?
Yeah. Hold on, Mr. Rayner will.
All right, we've been coordinating with the chair of the Prudence Island Planning Commission. And we've given them 2 options. We can do it remotely in the fall timeframe, or we can hope for the best and do it remotely, but hopefully in person in the spring timeframe. He is discussing that with his board and has yet to get back to us.
Thank you.
If we were to have one in September, it would more than likely be on a Saturday like we've done.
Correct. It would be a Saturday, but it would be a Zoom.
Yeah. So we're still waiting for some feedback from Prudence Island, but okay. So that's it for future meetings. So we are good.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, Andrew Kelly.
All those in favor?
Mr. Jukusa?
Aye.
Ms. Abbott?
Aye.
Hamilton?
Aye.
Katzman?
You're muted, Len.
Aye.
You can only hope.
Aye.
Dr. Ryan?
Aye.
And Mr. Aguirre?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
I did not get back. I think you get back to the full screen.